Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is where you are. Hello and welcome to the live stream for today. Let's see, I just want to get right into it. I hope that you're doing okay. As with many of these streams, I will try to remember at the beginning, if you want to put where you're from, it's always nice to see where people are from in the live chat, even though you might not see this later on when the video is available on demand. It's fun to live stream and see where people are. And unfortunately, I can't talk to you directly because this is a one-way live stream, but live chat's the best we can do. I wanted to mention that this week, this was now May, last week was the last April episode of the live stream. And during the month of April, a bunch of Drupal companies got together, and Dries Bytart and his wife Vanessa got together, and they did a 3-for-1 match basically for all donations to the Drupal Association for the Drupal Cares campaign. And let me switch over to my screen share. The Drupal Cares campaign, I believe, is getting close to its goal, its target, which will help the Drupal Association be able to weather the storm and be able to continue on without cutting things that are necessary to keep its lights on, basically. Excuse me. So that was really awesome to see people come together in the last few weeks to get a lot of funds raised to be able to get them through this. And also the DrupalCon this year for North America is now going to be a virtual DrupalCon. So there's information about that on the DrupalCon website. But it was also another cool thing I saw that happened was, I forget who it was. Was it Amazy or... Yeah, Amazy built this website, Pixels for Drupal. Basically, and this is still going on. So if you want to get your images out there, you can. Pixels for Drupal scrapes the data off of the Drupal Association website and gives you credit for any donation you make. And that credit can be applied to buying space on this site, which will continue to be up after this campaign is over and be like a way to show that you supported the Drupal Association during this time. So you might notice the mug of somebody familiar on there. But it's really cool to see as time goes on, more and more of the people and companies that I have worked with in my time with Drupal are popping up on here. And we also have our Drupal St. Louis users group up here too. Even though the Drupal St. Louis users group is not quite as active these days. But if you have a local Drupal users group that has a little funds available, you can donate through the user group. You can donate personally. You can get your company to donate. But I've also been tracking, so I hacked together a little shell script that's been taking screenshots every 10 minutes for the past week. And so you can kind of see as time goes on, this page fills in over time with more and more support from the people in the Drupal community. So it's cool to see that, and I am glad that the campaign kind of took off in the past few weeks, because the first few days it didn't seem like there was that much activity, but as time went on and it got a lot more spread through the Drupal community, especially as the businesses that use and rely on Drupal and make lots of money from Drupal have kind of gotten on board and started giving funds and matching funds. That's really helped, and it's a beautiful thing to see in times when there's crises. This week's music video of the week, let me get back to my screen share. The music video of the week is from the Kitten Killers. Actually, I forgot to mention that at CMS Philly, I was roped into this by, I need to turn off my notifications. There we go. I was roped into this by Chris Urban, who I used to work with at Acquia. But he and I have done for the past few years a Drupal local development environment survey. And he's always wanted me to come to Philadelphia for it used to be Drupadelphia. Now it's called CMS Philly because they cover some other CMSs as well. So he finally got me because it was a virtual conference and I had no excuse not to go because I had nowhere else to be. So last Friday, I had one presentation on this Drupal 7 to 8 migration. I basically summarized all these live stream episodes, and the slides and the video for that are up. Thanks again to all the organizers of CMS Philly who had a big curveball thrown at them for this virtual conference. They did a great job. Thanks to all the people who came. It wasn't a ton of people. CMS Philly's not like the biggest Drupal thing on earth, but it's always fun to be at an event where there's a smaller, more intimate group of Drupal users. And also when it's more local, you start to see some of the problems that people see that aren't in big Drupal agencies. That's one thing that I've always disliked sometimes, not always disliked, but one thing that you lose when you work for a larger Drupal agency or larger enterprise Drupal work is you don't see the little problems and the little usability things that really trip up beginners with Drupal or people who aren't doing Drupal for their day job. They just kind of use it as a tool. And when you see some of those things, sometimes you realize how big of an impact you can make by fixing one little bug somewhere, that kind of thing. So always fun to see those things. This week's music video of the week is a classic that I believe was 2010 Copenhagen, maybe was the first time it was played, but it was by the Kitten Killers, and the name of the song is I Can Be Your Module, You Can Be My Theme, and here's a short clip of that.
My code needs hugging and kissing. I can be your module, you can be my theme.
So you can go on YouTube and see the entire video at your own leisure. There's actually a few versions of it. They did the first version was very shaky cam would be putting it mildly. It was kind of hard to follow what the words were and things like that in the first version that was recorded in a bar. But that version that I just had was a little bit more clear, and they had the words on the screen so you could kind of follow along. But definitely a lot of fun in the Drupal sphere. It seems like a lot of these videos were made a little bit earlier in Drupal's life before it became a little more corporate and formal, because it's not as cool, I guess, to do crazy, weird things like that. I don't know. But we still do have some other ones, like Every Day I'm Drupal. And I think on the Pixels for Drupal, there's even a link. One of the links is morphed. Every day we're Drupalin. So that was funny. It's also funny to see there's a few of these in here that have, like this one, Vit Hovizak, pronouncing his name completely wrong probably, but I liked how he put his little head around his head there. So you can do creative, fun things with this too. And the cool thing is this is going to be memorialized, hopefully forever. I mean, as long as Amazy Labs is around, and they could turn it into a static site after that too. But it'll be a way to see, what happened in 2020 to bring the Drupal community together. So anyway, back to here. We did the Drupal music video, and I noticed that Oliver. Excuse me, I'm having a little bit of allergies lately. I noticed Oliver mentioned that he enjoyed giving his talks. I watched at least half of your talk, Oliver. It was good, and it wasn't only because you mentioned me, but it was a good talk on automating deployments with Ancestrano. I always want to say something else, but Ancestrano, I think you were talking about, and using Ansible to automate things like that. And Daniel's saying he's all evented out. Yeah. That can happen. I know there was one year where I was doing a lot of travel. This was before I had 3 kids. Doing a lot of travel for work. I think I did DrupalCon, MidCamp, 2 or 3 other Drupal camps, and then also Ansible Fest and one other tech event. And you can definitely burn out on that circuit, especially if you're not an outgoing, an extrovert. I am an introvert, and I need my time to recharge, and I can only do maybe 1 or 2 of those a quarter tops. Typically 1 or 2 a year is probably my optimal solution. So last week we did search on the site. That was issue number 54. We basically connected jeffgeerling.com, the new site, the new Drupal 8 site, to a new subscription on hosted Apache Solr. And hosted Apache Solr is not a formal sponsor of this, but since I run the service hosted Apache Solr, I will advertise it anyways. It's a really cool, inexpensive hosted Apache Solr search solution for Drupal websites. Anyway, we connected to it. I found that there was some weird issue that I had to reconnect. I think it had to do something with the exported configuration and removing the password. it basically lost its connection, and I had to re-add the password. I found out after I posted an issue. Was it on here? Yeah, so I posted an issue to the Search API Solr issue queue about this. Basically, it was exporting my password in the configuration. I really didn't want that to happen, because if I did that, like, I trust you guys watching this live stream or watching the video after the fact, but I don't trust other people to not log into my site and delete search things or change things. So that I thought that was a pretty bad security vulnerability, but Mark Cal, I can't pronounce his name. Anyway, he said that in your settings file, you can put a Search API configuration in there and have your password in there. And so that's what I did. I'm not going to show it to you because it has the password in it, but it's in my local.settings.php on here. So I can do that on the main server too once we set it up, and it will connect using this configuration, and it won't export that in the Drupal exported config. So that was cool. I should probably comment here and saying thank you, and I'll do that later, because Mark, I believe it's Mark. Let me see what is Marcus Kalkbrenner. That's not too bad to pronounce, I guess. Anyway, he's done a great job with the Solr API modules or Search API Solr modules and all the associated suites of things that you can do with them. So I owe a lot to him for all of his maintenance. So thank you, Marcus. Anyway, so we got search to this point last week. We were getting search results. It was mainly theming and some tweaks to facets and things that were not there. So I spent a little time working on it, and I want to show you that because there are some tricky bits to it. And Oliver says I should put it in Ansible Vault, and yes, that is true. I actually, the only reason I haven't done that yet is because my current site doesn't have all its passwords in Ansible Vault, and I didn't. I kind of copied some things over from it, and I don't use it on it yet, but I will, because I hope that we'll do a live cutover, and if I do a live cutover and there's an plain text password, you'll be able to see it, and that would be very bad. So anyway. Search. The one cool thing about Drupal 8 is that I think you could do this in Drupal 7. I just didn't do it. You can pop the exposed form for any view into a block, and so this form right here, the search form, is actually the exposed form for the search page, the search view, which is separate. So if you go to localhost/search. Then this is the same form, it's just in a block, and I placed that block. So if I go to my block layout, let me show you how I created it. So in views, I went to my search, edit, and full text search is here, and this is exposes filter to visitors. So this is a normal exposed filter, but what I did was, I believe it's over here. There's an option for exposed form in block, and you can say yes. And if it's yes, then you can also say, make sure that somebody put something in it before it will give you any result. So that's helpful too, to have like no results until you do a search. And is there any other settings that are important? There's just settings for what you can do. But anyway, this exposed form lets you drop it into a form, and then on your block layout page, you can place that block anywhere, even on a page that's not the actual view. So you can do a search thing, or you can do a filter anywhere on your site, and then it will take you to that view page once you have that someone fills out that exposed form. So here I have exposed form search page right here. That's for the search page itself, and I think I just have that saying restricted to viewing on the search page and any page under the search page. And then at the footer, I have the same form exposed here in the footer as a block, and that also will direct me back to the search page. And I think I have this set to display on the entire site. No. Is this the footer? Exposed form search page, configure. This says it's restricted to search, but I think that it's visible everywhere. So I don't know. I don't remember why that's possible, but anyway, it shows up here. Maybe I did something else that I'm forgetting right now. But if I search for something like test, it will go to Apache Solr, gives me the number of results, which I put in as a views header, like a thing above the view with the result count. And then it has, I just adapted the theming from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. Pretty simple. There's a title, body, and date. And we'll talk about this in a few minutes, how it's kind of hard to read that. And then it has a pager at the bottom, because usually the result would be in the top 3 or 4 results. But I also added these facets back that I had in Drupal 7. And the facets were a little bit more challenging, and I wanted to mention that, mention why that was and how you can overcome weird issues with facets not behaving like you think they should. At this point, I have them working the same. So if I do a search for test, I'm going to go to jeffgeerling.com, my current site, and search for test. The results are pretty similar now. Well, I say that, and they're not. But for some searches, they're pretty similar. I think for Ansible, it's more closely related. But that's also because I've been tweaking things on the new site, even though I say not Ansible. Okay, so yeah, so this search is a lot more similar. You can see Slow Ansible Playbook is the first result for this on both sites. But I first of all, I fixed the theming bug where this was in dark colors on my current site, which is still a bug that exists right now. But since I'm moving to this new site, I haven't fixed it on my current site yet. Plus, there's very few people besides me that ever hit the search page. But these facets can be optimized in many, many different ways. On the new site, what I did was I ordered it by year descending, because I usually want to find the latest content. So sometimes I'll write the same kind of article a few years apart, and I want to see the latest one and not the one from 2012 or 2010 or something like that. I also changed the comments filter a little bit to rank it by how many comments there were, the items with the most comments. So you can see there's apparently two articles that have, I don't know why it says 2 and there's only 1. Maybe there's I re-indexed my site this morning, and so there's 2 copies of every node. That's why it's showing 2. There's actually just 1. But that way I can see what articles had a lot of comments on them and were a little more popular or viral or whatever. And you can see this one has lots and lots and lots and lots of comments, multiple pages of comments, in fact. So anyway, I set those up in search facets. And one thing that's important to know is you have to have the right field available to be able to filter the right way. So one thing that I was having trouble with was I was trying to get the count of comments. And I had indexed the comment field value, but I hadn't indexed comment_count. So when you're building your search indexes, let me go back to Search API and site content, that's my search index, and go to fields. When you add your fields, you have to add the right things to be able to get the data that you need for a facet. So this is comment count. When I'm going to add fields, there's a lot of different things. So in the content you have like comments. I had just added comments, and that might be okay for some things, but like for searching the text of a comment. But what I actually needed was I needed to click this and find the number of comments, the comment count, because I wanted to rank by that and have a facet for that. That's one thing to keep in mind if you're trying to build a facet and you're like, why is this not working the way I think it should work? It's usually you don't have the right data in that facet to build it the way that you want to build it. So that was the same thing with the processed text of the body. The first time that I did this, I think last time when we set this up, I added the body field rendered HTML values, but that's not exactly what I wanted because that had some extra data in it that made the search a little bit less relevant. So I got the process text out of the body, which is what after Drupal passes it through Drupal's input filters. And that way when you do a search, it doesn't show HTML tags and things like that. So I did that. I also made sure the title was full text. You can do the title as a string too, but then you lose the ability to boost it. If you set title to full text, you can boost it and give it more ranking. So like with Google, if a word is in a title or the URL, usually the search result will be a little bit higher. And that's one of the tricks of the trade for SEO is to make sure that your titles and your headings and things have the keywords that you want to target. Similarly with Solr, you can boost the title value and get it to be higher in the rankings if the word that you're searching for is in the title of a post. All right, so that's kind of how I set that all up. And the facets are their own little Pandora's box, I guess, of beautiful but also crazy things. There's so many options in here. And really all I can say is I've spent about an hour clicking on a lot of these things to figure out how to get it to be the way I wanted it to be, making sure that I made sure it was year, so it was just the year. I didn't care about the month or day. If you have a lot more blog posts, you might care about that. But I also changed the ordering. The ordering was confusing to me a little bit. So I had to play around with these things until it started giving me the values that I wanted. And that's kind of how things go with facets. I don't know. Somebody may have memorized all the options, but for me, that's how I get to this result. I am now remembering that before all of the current stuff that I do, I had a thing called Jeff's Computer Support where you could email me for $5 and ask me any computer question. That was quite a long time ago, though. Anyway, so that was search. Let me get out of here. And if you also want to see any of the changes I made, I made commits for all these different options that I was tweaking. And that's, as with all these things, all the code is open source and available in my GitHub repo, jeffgerling.com. All right, let's see, anything else? Akram is asking about Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch is, in a sense, it's identical to Solr in terms of performance, in terms of how the indexing goes, all those kind of things. They both use Apache Lucene on the back end, and Lucene is the same kind of text processing engine. So really the big differences are on the front end. And if you're not developing, if you're not working against their APIs directly, which if you're using the search API modules, it abstracts all that away and you don't see that. It's really not much of a difference. It's more of a marketing thing of like, oh, I use Elasticsearch and it's newer than Solr. Or Elasticsearch uses JSON and Solr uses XML. Those things don't really matter, in my opinion. I use Solr mostly because it's been around for an extra 5 or 6 years longer than Elasticsearch and has a little bit more of a community and things like that. Elasticsearch is also a little bit more of a corporate thing. Not that matters too much, but it's one thing where if you use an open source project, it's like super open source like Apache Solr. Sometimes a little thing where it's like, oh, grab this plugin, and for Solr, just like with Drupal, it's like, oh, it's free, you just grab the plugin. It might have a little breakage or whatever, but with Elasticsearch, it's like, oh, I need to do this. Oh, grab that plugin. Oh, I have to have a support contract to use that plugin. Okay. Forget that. So sometimes that kind of thing happens when you get into advanced use cases. Anyway, you got the point. Yeah. Also, Daniel's asking about comments. What am I using? I'm using Drupal comments. I just styled them. I'll give you a little secret. Localhost. I'll go to a page that has comments on it. Let me just go back to that page that I had. So I took for the styling, I took inspiration from news.ycombinator.com. So for Hacker News, I basically am using the same style just because of all the sites I've ever been on the internet. There are very few where it's easy to read the hierarchy and tree of comments and not be distracted by like the usernames or the reply button or anything. So I basically lifted this straight off here and did the exact same styling here, except I made it much less accessible because these links are very dim. So that's one thing that I might be fixing today when we do our accessibility review of the website. You can see on Hacker News the reply button is black, just like the text is black, so it's a little bit more accessible. Although these are right on the verge of what I'd consider good contrast accessible text. All right, so that was that. Anything else here? Okay. All right, so the other thing that I was going to work on, I did a few other things between last week and today. I fixed, if I go to localhost, I just added the CSS and JavaScript for the About page. So now this page renders the same on Drupal 8 as it does on Drupal 7 with these links. A quick note on that too is I used JavaScript on Drupal 7 to make these little more details links work. So if I click more details, it reveals the kind of the details of the job. That one's not a good example because there's only a couple, but this one's better just to keep the page a little bit shorter so you don't have to scroll forever and ever if you're actually going to look at this stuff, which nobody probably is, but I still have it out there for whatever reason. But it wasn't working. I attached it using libraries. If I go to libraries.yaml, I attached it down here. Where is it? I attached it like this, and it wasn't working. So then I was like, oh yeah, I need jQuery, and in Drupal 8, jQuery is not available. So I did that, and that actually works. So if I flush caches, this worked because it attached jQuery to the page, and I used jQuery in this JavaScript, which is right here, to add a behavior to the page that hid the attributes and then toggled them based on clicking that more details link. And that works. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. So then later I was testing the site not logged in. So I'm going to make a new private browsing window and visit the same page. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? Whoops, now I'm emailing myself. And I should probably quit mail anyways. Anyway, so I was like, what is going on? So I looked in the inspector, I clicked on the warning, and it says, can't find variable Drupal. And I'm like, what seriously? Like, this is Drupal. It's a Drupal site. It should work. And I basically searched that error and found someone else with the exact same problem. You also have to add a dependency on core/Drupal so that the Drupal behaviors are loaded and all Drupal's JavaScript libraries are available. So there you have it. That was how I got the resume page working. And now with that in place, if I flush the caches and visit that page again in a new private browsing window, now everything is working because all the libraries are attached correctly. So there you go. Okay, so let's look at accessibility in dark mode. For the past year or so, I've been using dark mode on my site. And one thing that I noticed was a lot of apps on my iPhone, which my iPhone, I have the SE or S, what is this? It doesn't say on it. It's the one, this one. It has 2 cameras, but it's not the latest one. It's like a year or 2 old. I don't know what, XSX, something like that. And it's a great phone, and it has an OLED display. And I noticed something interesting. So this is my home screen, and let's see if you can see that. If you notice the pixels that are black in the background are perfect black. And the cool thing is, for an OLED display, if it's a pure black pixel, it can turn off the power to that pixel, and it actually saves a little power. And some laptops are even starting to use OLED displays. And even if you don't have OLED, if you have a modern display, a lot of them actually do save a tiny bit of power for true black because it can turn down the backlight in that area if it has multiple LEDs for backlighting for better contrast ratios, that kind of thing. Not only that, increasing contrast is always a good thing for readability, for legibility. And I guess one of the things, so if I go to jeffgeerling.com and search for LASIK, the first time I really truly discovered what it was like, I don't have a picture on that one, was after I got LASIK. I was wearing glasses for a long time, and after I came home, you have these little goggle things on, and for the next week or two, you're super light sensitive. Like my office right now, I have two 3200 lumen light fixtures in here, and so I look pretty good, but it's very bright, and so my eyes were hurting. I had to turn off my office lighting for that amount of time for a few weeks while I was recovering. And the other thing is, a computer screen is very bright, and when you have like bright white, your eyes they hurt after that. Not only that, it's a little harder to focus too. So when text is really tiny, when it's low contrast, it's really hard to read things. And I noticed it's amazing the difference of a site that's built with accessibility in mind versus a site that has really poor contrast. Because the poor contrast site, you get a headache even trying to read it. And that's just, LASIK is a pretty simple thing, first world problems, I know. But a lot of people have vision disabilities it's a spectrum from, small inconvenience and getting headaches for reading certain sites to some people they can't do it. They don't have the acuity. And when you hit Command plus on a Mac and zoom in, if your site doesn't zoom in the right way, people will give up because it's so hard to read your site. So Drupal actually has a really good page, an accessibility review page for Drupal 8. It's a documentation guide, and it's pretty up to date too. It has a bunch of different things you can do to test your site out. You can use these different tools it has. I'm not going to do those today just because it's, in 30 minutes, I don't think I'd have time to set up a tool, run it, and do anything that it suggests by the end of that. Just setting up the tool might take 20 or 30 minutes for me. But some of the things that are quick wins is just making sure, one thing is like making sure that you can navigate the site on a keyboard. Not only for accessibility, but some users do like navigating websites using their keyboard and never use a mouse if they can avoid it. And so it's nice to be kind to them. And it also means that your links and markup are at least at a basic level correct. So whoops, that's not it. Localhost. And to do that, you can just click on the page somewhere and then press tab and start seeing where things are going. So you can see so far it's all the right things are being highlighted, all the links on the page, every link. And this is similar to what a screen reader, I'm not going to say it's the same as what a screen reader will do. But a screen reader will allow people to navigate the site similar to how you tab around on the page. Then I get focus on the search box. I can press search, top of page. If I hit top of page with enter, it takes me up there. So it's nice. And there's also, I think there's a mention in here about skip repeated content. So usually you'd want to have a skip to main page content link somewhere at the top. I believe Drupal adds one in that's hidden from visitors unless you have a screen reader. Let me see, skip. Yeah, there's a skip link up here right at the top. You can see it's hidden up here. And if I go here as over position absolute. So if I do that, you can see that it's up in here. There it is, somewhere in here. I don't know. Oh, this is the visually hidden, so now I'm screwing everything up on my page. Anyways, there's a link up here that shows up for screen readers for skip to main content that basically bypasses the title and the links and the tabs and things and goes straight to the content. So that's one important thing to have available for your readers who need to have better accessibility. And Ralph is mentioning too, take into consideration the outline color. Make sure that the outline color is strong enough. So here it's actually, I could probably stand making that outline color a little bit darker. Right now it's kind of a dark blue. I think that's just the default because I haven't changed it. So I could probably make that, and I'll make a note on this page. Color for elements. Because we probably won't be able to make all these changes today. Make slightly more contrasty in dark mode. Because that's another thing that I wanted to mention with this, because I have add contrast to dark mode colors. Whenever you're doing this kind of stuff, you want to make sure that you're doing it in light mode, in dark mode, in mobile. So for mobile, I usually just go in here, bring up the inspector and throw it up on the right side. And now I'm basically in a mobile layout and a breakpoint that's narrower. So you want to make sure that your styling doesn't blow up when you hit a breakpoint, 800 pixels or 1200 pixels or whatever it is. And obviously at the end of this, you also want to make sure that you're doing reviews on mobile devices themselves. But doing this kind of stuff it forces you to do things right. So even in mobile, I should be able to see things the same. some people's style sheets kind of blow things up on mobile, and all of a sudden you can't navigate by keyboard. So that's kind of super annoying if you have any kind of disability and are trying to browse a website like that. So if controls are fully operable, another note on that is if you're using Safari or Firefox or Chrome, all of them have options for what tab does. And in Safari, if I uncheck this tab to highlight each item, then if I go here and press tab, all I'm seeing is the link bar and the search bar, basically text fields. So if you're going to do this, make sure you set this to the right mode so that you can test things the right way. Let's see. Tabbing in both directions. That's another thing. If you have a lot of JavaScript on your site, I don't know why I keep closing my site. If you have a lot of JavaScript, sometimes you can tab through like this, but then when you go backwards, it goes somewhere else and screws things up. So you want to make sure that you can tab both directions. If you hold down Shift, you can go forward and backward. Let's see what else. Keyboard traps. Yeah, I usually just recommend don't using modals and things unless it's absolutely necessary. Drupal 7 actually defaulted to using an overlay module for everything in the admin. So you'd like click on any of these links and it would pop up an overlay. That caused so many accessibility issues. Most of them were resolved. I mean, credit to the people who did the work to get those things pretty accessible, because most of the time doing modals and popovers and things is super duper hard and sometimes impossible to get to work right for screen readers. But in the end, that was all scrapped because everyone realized, like, is it worth it just to have a little popover thing? Not really. So, you know, I just say, like, don't use those things. They're poor enough usability for people who have good sight and good ability to use their fingers and stuff to click on things. And it's bad enough when I'm like, oh, a popover, how do I get past this? And you find out that there's an X that's like way up at the top right, but the modal is right in the middle, and you're like, how do I get out of here? I have no idea, and you're clicking around trying to figure it out, and you just give up on the site. I keep closing my site. I should leave it open. Let's see, anything else? Focus always visible. Some of these things don't really apply to my site just because how simple it is. Tab order. And I mentioned about testing responsive breakpoints. You know, the easiest way to do that is to open your inspector and put it into vertical mode so you can test different breakpoints. This is not very scientific. If you're gonna, you know, for final review and for things, I would have a better tool that can give you your breakpoints and maybe show them side by side, that kind of thing. But when I'm developing, I usually just do this because I can test all my breakpoints informally this way. And another thing that I do a lot of times, for theming, I'm usually kind of hacky about it. I'm not super formal. If I want to see, like, oh, what's my 400 pixel breakpoint or something, I just press Shift Command 4 on the Mac. It brings up this little cursor, which you can't see because it's not super accessible. But if you look really closely, you can see this little crosshair has numbers on it. Here, I'll go over my face. And this is the numbers on the screen of what pixel it is. You can click and drag. So I'm at 0. I can drag over, and this is 400. Now, a note that I'm on a 2x screen. So that would actually be 800 real pixels, but this is 400 across. And if I don't want to take a screen capture, so I'm just going to hit escape. But now I know it's right here, and then I can just drag this over, and it's like, yeah, it's about there. Again, this is the hacky, informal way to do things, but for my needs, it works pretty well, and I don't have to open up 7 different tools to do my theming. All right. So that was breakpoints. Some of these things are just super basic theming things. You should use headings correctly on your page. I'm not going to go through that because I know that I am using headings well. I always use heading 2 inside of content to break up sections, and then I go from there, heading 3, heading 4, heading 5. And there's always one H1 element, which is the page title. Color and contrast. So this is an area where people slip up a lot. And I keep closing my site. I don't know why. If you notice this black up here, it's kind of hard to see because it's separated, but this black up here is true black. This black is actually kind of an off black. I don't know, maybe, I guess a dark gray. There's no such thing as off black. And then these are kind of like grayer blobs. What I want to do is I want to make this black, this darkness black, so that on my site, the phone and any OLED displays can turn off their pixels entirely and increase the contrast. So it's kind of like a win-win. It's more energy efficient and battery efficient, and it also increases the contrast. So I'm going to go ahead and make that change really quick. I believe that's on the body color. Yeah, background color. So if I go to dark mode, and that's 222. It has a border bottom. Oh, that's for the, I guess that's for these links here. I don't know what that's for. Anyway, the background on the page is 222. I want that to be 000. And the color, is the color really DDD? Let me check that out. Where is the color? DDD? It is DDD. So I wonder if we want to make that a little brighter too. This is not making any change. Oh, over here. We can. I mean, that it looks good to me. That's about as contrasty as you can get. So let me change that to FFF and save this. And then H2, I don't know why I'd have that a different color. I guess I had that a little brighter. How about I make the body that header 2 is FFF, and then we'll check on links in just a second. And this change doesn't apply because apparently it's still caching things even though I told it not to. And is it good now? No. I'm just going to flush all caches. Oh, I never saved this. If you don't save the file, it doesn't actually make any changes. That's definitely the one issue. Okay, so now the background is true black, and I want to make these boxes 222. So I'm going to find, I'm actually going to do a search and replace in here. So I'm going to find in folder 222, and I'm going to make all of those 000. Replace, those are all in here apparently. And then I'm going to change these, and I'm going to make them 222. Where is that block? There we go. Okay, so these are 32. Oh wow, 323232. I'm going to make those 222. I sound like a dentist. I don't know if your dentist does the same thing, but like 222, 222, 232, 323. When they're looking through your teeth and seeing, I guess, the hardness of them or thickness. I don't know what they measure, but that's what my dentist, the assistant, does whenever I get my teeth checked. Let's see. So these are going to be 222. Replace, 2 occurrences, 1 file. Save it. I don't think it'll. Oh, it did apply. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. Now on an OLED screen, this is all going to be true black, and I've increased the contrast of my text. I think the links are already okay. If I, let me get I'm going to use the contrast checker on Drupal.org. So there's this tool called contrast ratio. There's plenty of other tools out there too. There's some that do automated checks on your site CSS. Sometimes those are not great because they can't account for dark mode or screen sizes or different settings on your site. But you want to have at least 4.5 to 1. And more is better usually. So, you know, if you do white and black, then you have a 21 ratio of contrast, which is about as good as you can get. But I'm going to check on this text color to this background. So that color is this. So I'm going to grab that and do it against, do it against this guy, which is, I'll use the inspector because that's easier. Okay, there we go. This is 222. So 222. So 5.84, and it's not necessarily the best, but it's above the recommended minimum, well above it. And you can also, one thing I like about this little contrast tester is you can swap the colors so you can see on inverse what they're like. And also you can just see with yourself. One thing that I usually do is I take a step or two back from the computer, and then if you can still see the text pretty well, it's probably not going to be a big issue. But if you have a super high resolution, really good display and all that, almost anything is going to look okay, even if it's poor contrast ratio. So another thing that you can do besides all this is take an older computer if you have one. I have an old MacBook Air that's from 2010, I think. The screen is not Retina display quality, and it's also not very contrasty. It's an older screen. They weren't made as well back then. But a lot of people have computers that have screens that are in a similar situation. Some of us developers have a really nice display, Retina quality, great colors, great contrast ratio, all that kind of stuff. And so it's easier for us to see things. But then when we get our stuff out to users, they have a bigger problem with it. So it's nice to have an older display, maybe an old mobile phone, that kind of thing too, or even a really cheap Android phone, one of the low-end ones that has a really poor screen. Another thing that I have is for my Raspberry Pis, I have a few little displays that can be nice to preview things on, just to make sure there's nothing crazy major that's bad about it. There's also a couple things on here. They're device size presets built into web tools. I don't remember. I used to use Chrome, and remember that it did have that. I believe that there are in here some options for device sizes. I just don't remember where. Maybe not. There's the debug menu. I thought there was. I just don't remember, because when I did more theming work, I used Firefox Developer or Development. I forget what the version of Firefox was that had the extra development tools for theming, but I used that, and it did have some of those options. But Chrome does have, wherever it is in Chrome, it's a little more accessible than here. I guess there are these things: rulers, media styles. Oh, force light appearance. That's nice. I didn't even know that existed. So I can go here and switch. Oh, and I just found a bug. I'm missing that line on the bottom there. But you can see light mode is quite a bit different on my site, and now my eyes are actually kind of hurting from that. So I'll get back to dark mode. But there are some options. What is this one? Compositing borders, paint flashing, and hide the details. I'm pretty sure there's a way to do that. Rulers. I just don't remember where it is in Safari, because I've to be honest, like I said in the past, I'm not a themer anymore, and I haven't really done the theming and setting. Like for this site, I think I have one breakpoint it's like at 800 pixels or 1,000 pixels or something, and that's my only breakpoint. And from then on, I'm mobile first in the width. So I like keeping things simple, but for a site where you're going to have multiple breakpoints and maybe even have some changes for different devices, it is important to have the ability to develop in those different breakpoints and have them visible at the same time. Dark mode forever, yes. Akram says that in the chat. Chrome DevTools might also be able to check the contrast ratio. I know that there's also plugins. I don't know if there's one for Safari, but if I go to Chrome, there might be a tool built in that does the contrast checks. Let me check really quick. Whoa, that is totally not, this is not right. I don't know if that's a Chrome bug, a computer bug, or what. This is definitely not the way that the site should look. Let me see if that's coming. It is coming through on the stream like that. I don't know where that's coming from. Wow, that's kind of amazing. I mean, I didn't do that effect, so I don't know what that's coming from. Ooh, Chrome is just not happy at all right now. I wonder if OBS, let me bring this, hold on a second. I'm going to bring it to my other monitor. Nope, same on the other monitor. I don't know what's going on there. Chrome is not happy. So forget that. I'm not going to show you anything about Chrome because Chrome's being silly. I'll try Firefox though, localhost. Firefox works. I mean, it's one more reason why you shouldn't use Chrome, I guess. But in Firefox, their thing has accessibility. Let's see. Turn on. I don't know. Check for issues, contrast issues. It looks like there's no big issues, so that's nice. Keyboard issues. So here's one thing. There's a link that doesn't have a label. it doesn't, let's see, links must be labeled, main content. Let's see where that link is though. But that is nice. So Firefox has this built in. Enter keywords, it might miss focus styling. So that is interesting. So if I go here, let me check it in Safari. So it does have a focus style. It has an outline. It's not a very good outline, so I should fix that. But I don't know why it's saying it should have a thing. It should have a text label too. So there should be like a search keywords or something like that. That's true. Search, I don't know what it's given there. Maybe missing focus styling. So that might be true too. Let me check in here. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have a different style for focus, but it does have an outline. So I don't know. Some of these might be a little bit strict. Might be not as big an issue. Text labels. So this is cool. I don't think that Safari has an accessibility tab like this, but good to know. Yeah. And Ralph is saying that in Chrome there are color squares that shows you the accessibility tree, so that's nice. It sounds like Safari is, while I enjoy it for most of my browsing needs and it's very fast and battery efficient, there are more accessibility tools built into Firefox and Chrome for those who are more interested in doing that testing. Anyway, so we got the contrast increased here. I also want to check and make sure that other parts of the site are good. So I'm going to go to a project page. Besides the fact that that image doesn't load at all, this is looking pretty good. If I refresh it, now it loads. That's just a back-end issue. These are generated image cache thumbnails. Is it still called? It's an image style thumbnail. And Drupal has a traditional issue with when you have multiple images on a page that it's rendering. Sometimes it runs out of memory or Apache blows up when it's trying to render these things. So if that ever happens on your first page load, refresh, and usually the thumbnails will load in. Anyway, so this page looks okay. Let me go back to a blog post. This page is looking good so far. The comments section is this might need to be changed to 222. Let me grab my inspector and grab this section. It is 222. Okay, so that's good. I should probably increase the contrast here for these guys. The hover state is okay, but the normal state is not. It's a little dark. So let me check what those are. Visited, those are links. Here we go. Comment submitted A. So let me grab this and find where it is in my CSS. Comment submitted A. So this color is 777. Let's choose a little bit better color for that. Maybe just make it a little bit brighter. Maybe CCC would be okay. Maybe even DDD. Yeah, that's okay. Let's do DDD for that. And DDD for that. Save that. What else? We got these links down here too. I think these are reply links. So these will be a little bit different. Comment.links A. We'll make those DDD as well. I did make those DDD. Okay. So let's finish there. And I don't believe that those are dark mode. That's something I'll have to check. I'll have to switch to light mode and see on these too. Okay, this is not a link, so I want to change that too. I probably want to add a tiny bit more contrast, so I'm going to make these, I'll do CCC, and I'll check the contrast on that with the contrast ratio. Number 222 is the background, number CCC is the thing, 9 is still good. As you can tell, I'm definitely not a themer because I'm just sitting here playing around with shades of gray. It's always easier to theme with shades of gray than to use colors because then you have to think about color theory and all that. Or you just have a really poorly designed site. Let's see what I got here. This is 999 for comment submitted. Whoops. Submitted. So these are 999. We'll make that E. Let's try that out. Refresh. Let's actually make that, if it's brighter, then I don't want it, to look brighter than the link itself. So we'll do DDD and see if that looks okay. What did I do here? This looks dimmer. Inspect, CCC, DDD. Oh, the DDD is brighter, so I want to do maybe BBB. Give it a little more AAA. And let me make sure that my contrast is still good there. 6 is getting lower, but it's still fine. Refresh. Okay, so that's a little better. And for these, technically, it's better to have the underline for these links, but these are things that I don't really want to call out to people. It's more for the metadata. And the fact that they're links is nice. And if somebody knows, oh, I want a permalink to a comment, which is extremely rare, then they can figure that out on their own. But that's not something I want people to even really do. So it's more for my benefit to get to a comment. And these links are a little stronger now, easier to see. So that's good. So you fixed that. The top of page link, this text, let me see what color it is, and I'll just make sure that it's not too dim. If I can find what the color is. AAA. And I could also go to computed style just to grab the color out of there, but this is AAA to black, and that's probably going to be fine. Yeah, it's already fine at 222, so ratio is 9, and that's good. I think we're good there. What other sections of the site do I have to worry about? Let me go to the About page. Everything here seems okay. This is a little dim. I'll bring that up a bit. So that's in here. And we'll make that AA as well. That didn't make a difference. Let me flush caches. All right, 50 Shades of Jeff. We won't go there. But yeah, if you ever see a website that's extremely grayscale, it's usually one that I set up, because it's a lot easier to think in terms of like 12 gray colors instead of thinking of all the colors of the rainbow. Actually, I should say pydramble.com. This is the most theming I've ever done in the past 3 or 4 years. I chose a blue color scheme, and it's unbelievable. It's so, you can see there's white, black, and blue. I mixed in. Oh, there's actually, I forget, there was this splash of green down here. This is incredible for me. There were like 3 colors instead of 2. I don't know if I have any other accents around the site, but yeah, I put this green down here, and that's pretty bold of me, I have to say. That's the boldest color I've ever done in the past like 20 years, since I did JJJCL, which is my Latin website from high school days. You can look that up if you want to later. But anyway, this looks good now. Let me make sure that the details are good. These links all work. All right, I think we're doing pretty good on the increasing the contrast on the black. Is there anything else that I'm missing? Comments? I think that's it. I think that's about it. I got through all the different main types of content on the site. So I'm going to commit these changes back to my repo. Git checkout-b. Add contrast is issue 36. Dark mode contrast. Add all the changes. Git status. Git commit -m. Increase, or I'll say fixes. I'll say issue 36, increase contrast in dark mode, and make AY happy. A11Y, for those who don't know, means accessibility. It is, it's funny, it's kind of ironic. Let me push this up. -u 36, origin 36. There we go. and I'll make a PR for it. GHPR create. Yes, submit. Okay, so that PR is going to go up and do some testing on GitHub. Another thing I haven't mentioned is that there's actually tools for automated accessibility review, and you can integrate it with your CI workflow. I don't have that set up on GitHub Actions, but that's something I could consider doing. And some of those things might be linked in here. I don't have much video, sound, autoplay, any of that kind of stuff on my site. But the last thing I wanted to mention was it is nice to be able to test with a screen reader. You can even use VoiceOver on your Mac or your iPhone or iPad or something like that. Windows has something too. I forget what it is, the built-in system for VoiceOver stuff. And you can see what someone's going to see when they're doing things on your site, and see if there's anything that's really tripping them up. But I mentioned earlier that A11Y is a shortcut for accessibility. And you'll see that in a hashtag sometimes. And it's funny because, in my opinion, those kind of terms like A11Y and K8S and things like that, they're super inaccessible because you have to know what they mean to know what they mean. And unless you're already in that in crowd, you won't know that A11Y means accessibility. I remember the first time I saw it, I'm like, why is Ali someone who like does accessibility work or something like that? And it was, no, it's an abbreviation for the word that makes it harder to know what the word is. So it's nicer to use full terms unless you know, like, I guess TTFN is an old one. Nobody really uses that these days. But LOL, like people know that LOL is laugh out loud. But even then, why not just say I laughed so hard, or little things like that. The way that you have language on your site and language on buttons and graphics and making sure you have labels for everything, those things all help with accessibility, and it's important for the web. I think that's where I'm going to wrap it up. After the episode, I'll probably work on making sure that the light mode is also a little more accessible. You can see this is not, this doesn't have enough contrast, the search button and stuff. So I'll work on that after the video, and I'm hoping that, let me look at the issue backlog. Most of these issues at this point are little things that I can do after the migration is over. Like I'm probably not going to fix these bugs. I'll probably fix them after the migration once, and they'll be fixed. I'm going to put off enhancing the homepage until after the migration. So I think at some point here, I'm going to, maybe next week. I think this is the last thing. Next week, maybe we'll do a few more cleanups. And then the week after that, I'll have like a party episode where we will actually move this thing live. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to build a new Kubernetes cluster for it, which would be kind of insane and crazy, or if I'm just going to do it on the same server, or if some Drupal company wants to sponsor hosting for me and sponsor an episode, they could do that too. I'm talking to you, Pantheon, Amazy, Acquia, whoever. But anyway, we'll figure that out, and probably the week after next week, we will have a migration party. It would have been cool to have that today because it's Cinco de Mayo. Shout out to anybody who's celebrating that today. But for now, I guess it'll be a little bit later in May, and we'll have that fun. So thanks for watching. What's the site that I use for the grayscale rating? It's not actually the grayscale rating, technically. It is, let me pop back over there. It was linked from Drupal's documentation on how to do an accessibility review, and it was under color and contrast. There's a link to the color contrast checker, which is contrastratio.com, and I'll stick that link in the live chat so you can see it. It's pretty cool. I like it a lot. And it even does transparency too, which is nice. Anyways, so I guess let me pop over here. As with all my other episodes, I have this wonderful little set of links below me. If you want to support me on GitHub, sponsors, or Patreon, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, wherever else as Gearling Guy, and please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It's right below me. Well, actually, it'd be right over here somewhere. There's a subscribe button. One other thing that I've been working on, and I have the next episode almost ready to go, is a set of videos talking about Raspberry Pi clustering. I have this Drupal Raspberry Pi Dramble cluster that has four 4 Raspberry Pi Model 4s. And I was extremely excited to hear from the company called, what are they called? Turing Machines, that's making this new board called the Turing Pi. It is basically a motherboard that holds 7 Raspberry Pis, the compute module on it. And I'm going to be partly reviewing it, but also talking about how to build a cluster of Raspberry Pis. And one of the applications that I'm going to deploy to it is Drupal. The first episode is already up. I put it up last week, and you can go back in my YouTube and find that. But if you click subscribe, you'll be able to see all the rest of the episodes that I'll be posting soon. So I'm excited about that. Still doing the Ansible live streams, Ansible 101, if you're interested in learning about automation. But thank you so much, and I hope you're having a good week, and I will see you next week.